Discover how a chance encounter with a lonely millionaire transformed her life in just 24 hours. The rain pelted against the diner's windows as Sarah let out a weary sigh, locking up after yet another long shift. Cradling her worn-out key ring, she turned to face the dining area, her heart sinking at the sight of Max. A solitary figure hunched over a booth, coffee untouched. He looked like a statue of despair. Something about his presence tugged at her, and the weight on her shoulders shifted uneasily. Here was a man whose life, by all appearances, was a success, yet a profound loneliness silently emanated from him. As she made her way to clear his table, Sarah couldn't shake the thought of Jake, her bright, troubled son. Just last week they had fought over his recent descent into reckless behavior, a result of overwhelming peer pressure. She hesitated, torn between approaching this stranger and the nagging guilt about her son. Would she be abandoning him yet again if she engaged in a conversation with a man who seemed to have no idea of the storm brewing in her life? "Excuse me, sir. Would you like me to refill that?" Her voice came out softer than she intended. His eyes met hers, revealing a flicker of vulnerability that was hard to ignore. They began to talk. She shared pieces of her life, bills, work, vulnerable dreams she had shoved away. And Max reciprocated, revealing the isolation of newfound wealth, the expectations, and the weight of unfulfilled dreams. In that worn-out diner, Sarah felt for the first time in years that someone saw her, truly saw her. "What if I told you I need help? I want to revive my family's art gallery," Max blurted out, his expression earnest. "I could use someone like you, someone resilient. You could rediscover your passion for art in the process." Her heart raced. This was an opportunity, a chance to steer her life in a new direction. But Jake? How could she leave her son when he was already struggling? She wrestled with thoughts of his safety, his happiness. Could she really venture into the unknown with a man she hardly knew? Was she even worth this chance? Doubt crept in, but beneath it was desperation, an echo of a dream she had buried long ago. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The next few days became a blur of art supplies, the muffled sound of joy creeping in as she painted at Max's gallery. Yet tension loomed over her as whispers from the town found their way back to her. Sarah is chasing dreams. What kind of mother does that? Those judgments wrapped around her like a noose, squeezing tighter as Jake's behavior spiraled. She breathed unevenly, each interaction with him layered with unspoken fear that he was slipping away, a roar of anxiety building in her gut. Then came the moment that twisted everything. Jake faced disciplinary actions at school, rumors, accusations, a boy becoming unraveled in front of her eyes. She could either stand firm, support him against the tide of the small-town scorn, or continue with her newfound aspirations. The stakes felt impossibly high, mounting pressure suffocating her with every choice laid bare. Should she prioritize her son or seize the opportunity for a revitalized future? The lines blurred more and more, a storm of emotional chaos closing in. In this moment she stood at a precipice, panic rising. Just how far was she willing to go to transform her family's legacy? The haunting questions echoed louder than ever, demanding answers she could not yet find. Sarah stared at the blank canvas before her, a silent testament to both her burgeoning hope and deep-rooted fears. She dipped her brush into vibrant colors, each stroke rhythmic yet chaotically reflecting the storm inside her. How could creativity thrive amidst so much anxiety? The art brought her solace, a momentary reprieve from the reality of her son's struggles. But every time she glanced at the half-finished painting, images of Jake's disheveled state loomed in her mind, intertwining with the vivid colors on her palette. It felt like she was caught in a paradox. The art called to her, yet the weight of family responsibilities pressed down like a heavy cloak. Was it selfish to pursue this second chance when his world was unraveling? I can't do this. She stepped back, frustration ebbing and flowing, just like the doubt inside her. Max noticed her hesitation, a shift in the air that seemed to freeze time. You have a talent, Sarah. Your work is powerful. But you're holding back. What is it that's stopping you? His genuine inquiry only amplified her turmoil. She wanted to explain, to lay bare the conflict of her ambition against her commitment to Jake. But no words came. Silence hung heavy between them, punctuated only by the soft rustle of paintbrushes and the distant hum of life outside. She shook her head as if trying to clear the fog. I have to focus on my son. Always. She replied defensively. I can't let him down. Are you sure that pursuing your passion would be letting him down? Max asked, leaning forward, eyes sharp with understanding. Maybe it could inspire him instead. The implication struck her like a bolt of lightning, igniting something deep within. What if she could fight for both? Be a mother and an artist. Her passions need not exist in opposition to her responsibilities. Perhaps they could even bind them together, offering Jake a path and a vision for his own future. The thought lay there, dense and unyielding, a nucleus of hope intermingled with fear. She considered the impact her journey into this artistic revival could have on Jake. The sight of a mother who dared to pursue her own life could instill courage in him to confront his own challenges. Could a shift in her direction create ripples that might guide him back from the shadows? Armed with newfound determination, Sarah reached for her brush again. This time, each stroke held a promise to herself, to her son. She envisioned canvases that would adorn the walls of the gallery, but also serve as a beacon for Jake, illuminating the power of resilience and pursuit. But as she painted, the whispers from the town crept back into her mind, heavy and critical. At times, societal expectations bordered on suffocating, echoing judgment. How could she take such a risk when Jake was struggling, or when her own choices were already met with skepticism? Selecting deep hues, she immersed herself in the act of creation, yet moments of doubt infiltrated her focus. What if Jake fell further? What if he blamed her for prioritizing art over family? Each thought was a knot in her stomach, and the rising anxiety began to claw its way back. As the day waned, a determination emerged within her, a flicker against the consuming shadows of doubt. She would show Jake her endeavor, strike a balance, but how? The shifting weight of responsibility, the nagging guilt, continued pressing against her, blending with the vivid creativity blooming on the canvas. Just then her phone buzzed violently on the table, cutting through her concentration. One glance at the screen made her heart plummet. It was a message from Jake. "Mom, I need to talk. It's serious." An electric thrill of panic shot through her. Facing a crossroads, she felt the distance between pursuing her art and being present for her son looming ever larger. This next conversation could determine the trajectory of their lives forever. She had to prepare, but how would she balance the two worlds? The moment was finally here, but dread began to coil anxiously in her stomach, an impending conversation that could shift the course of both their paths. What did Jake really want to say? Would her worlds come crashing together or find an unexpected harmony? The walls of her studio felt like they were closing in as she stared at her phone, mind racing ahead to the possibilities of the upcoming conversation. What could be bothering Jake so deeply? She could picture his face, worry etching into his features, a reflection of her own distress. With a deep breath, Sarah hastily wiped her hands on a cloth and grabbed her phone. Her heart raced, not only from the contents of Jake's message, but from the realization that she was standing at a pivotal moment in her life. This conversation was crucial, a thread in the tapestry of their intertwined destinies. Drawing in the deep breaths she had practiced during yoga, she approached the kitchen table where Jake often sat cradling his phone, his eyes glazed over with frustration or numbness. Despite her determination, apprehension snaked its way back into her thoughts. Would he view her artistic pursuits as a betrayal, a reminder of his own struggles? She stretched her mind as she prepared. She would keep the conversation focused on him, on his needs. But as she paced the room, The nagging voice of doubt crept in. What if her art aspirations overshadowed his emotional state? Mom. Jake's voice echoed down the hallway, thick with uncertainty and urgency. It pulled her from her reverie, and she quickly took her place at the table, her heart pounding in rhythm with the stirring anxiety. "Hey, sweetie," she replied, forcing a composure she didn't quite feel. Jake appeared at the entrance, his posture slumped, hands tucked deep into his pockets. The sight crushed her. This was not her son at his best. It was a shadow of the boy who once laughed freely, a phantom of hope and brightness dimmed. I don't know how to say this," he began, his voice wavering. Sarah felt a rush of protective instinct wash over her, every maternal fiber urging her to cushion him from whatever turmoil brewed within. "Take your time," she said softly, searching his gaze for clues, trying to piece together what lay hidden beneath the surface. After what felt like an eternity, Jake finally spoke. "I feel lost, Mom. I don't know who I am or where I'm headed." Her heart twisted in response. She remembered her own feelings of entrapment, the wrestling between creative ambition and the profound obligation of parenthood. "Jake, you're not alone in this," she reassured him. But her mind spiraled with conflict about how to direct their conversation towards redemption without deflecting his pain. I just can't talk to my friends. I don't want them to think I'm weak." His confession struck an all-too-familiar chord in her heart. She had once feared judgment from her peers, allowing their opinions to cloud her ambitions. Hadn't she been holding her breath all along, masking her own struggles behind the canvas? A surge of empathy rushed through her. "You're not weak, Jake. Everyone goes through this. We can navigate it together." She paused, taking a leap of faith to share a slice of her own vulnerability. "I'm fighting with my own fears about my art and responsibilities. It hurts me too to balance it all." Her honesty seemed to thaw some of the tension between them. Jake's eyes met hers, and for a moment, they were only two souls searching for resilience. "What do you mean?" he whispered, curiosity igniting behind his despair. "I mean, I've finally begun to realize that pursuing my dreams isn't just for me. It can be for us. What if I could show you a way where being true to ourselves could actually help, rather than hinder our relationship?" She could see the gears turning in Jake's mind as she spoke. Perhaps her vulnerability could inspire him to unearth his passions too, to shift the focus from darkness to exploration. "Mom, you're really doing art again?" he asked, a flicker of hope illuminating his eyes. "Yeah, I am. But I want to show you that you don't have to hide how you feel. We can both step out, face our fears together." The possibility of connection sparked something raw within her, balancing on a precipice of hope. Yet, the weight of responsibility loomed heavy as she realized that this conversation was just the beginning. But there was still a daunting silence beside her, a space filled with unspoken thoughts. Jake's eyes seemed to cloud over again, and her heart sank at the thought of any setbacks in his healing process. "Can we talk more about that?" he finally asked, hesitation lacing his voice. "Yes, let's explore this together," she said, her determination cementing within her. She felt a thread of unity thread between them that implored for courage on both sides. Just then, a stray thought cut through her clarity. How would she balance this potential bond, her roles as a mother and artist, when her own uncertainties still lingered? They had parted ways in their struggles, but now they were threading their paths back together. With the dialogue commencing, Sarah drew in a shaky breath, knowing somewhere inside her that this was the pivot point for them both. Together, they could navigate the murky waters of doubt, but questions still loomed. Would they find a way to transform their burdens into lighter ones, or would the weight pull them down further? The atmosphere in the room shifted subtly as Sarah and Jake sat across from each other, a fragile but potent energy pulsing between them. It felt both terrifying and liberating, acknowledging their intertwined struggles while embracing the uncomfortable truth that vulnerability could lead to connection. Her resolve began to crystallize. They could be each other's anchor. Jake's eyes darted around the table, his fingers fidgeting with the edges of his phone. Sarah knew he was searching for words but hadn't quite found the courage to share them. She decided to bridge the gap, drawing on her own experiences of self-doubt. You know, this year has been one of the hardest in my life, too. Remember how I kept saying I'd get back to my painting? Yeah. Jake nodded, still hesitant. Every time I picked up a brush, I felt an avalanche of doubt. What if it's not good enough? What if I'm wasting time? But I realized that those fears don't define my talent. They only limit my growth. She watched the flicker in his eyes, willing him to engage. I don't know, Mom, he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. What if I try something and it turns out bad? Then it'll just confirm that I'm a failure. The term echoed painfully in her mind. She had wrestled with that very notion for years. But what if that's the only way to discover who you really are? That failure is not the end, it's just part of learning. And I understand how scary that feels. I've been dodging criticism, both external and the kind I train on myself, for so long. A moment of tense silence enveloped them again as he contemplated her words. The silence was an invitation, an opening rather than a void. It struck her then that perhaps the most important aspect of this moment was not merely sharing but listening. She needed to understand Jake's demons just as he needed to discover hers. What do you care about? She finally asked, her voice calm but probing. Where do you find joy, apart from the pressure of school and friends? Jake leaned back, a frown forming as he pondered. I used to love making music, but I don't think I'm good enough, and it's silly to even think about it. Making music isn't silly. It's an expression of who you are. What if you started small? Maybe just play one song. You're passionate about it. You can't let fear steal that from you. As the words escaped her lips, clarity dawned. Her pursuit of art wasn't solely for herself. It was about sharing that passion and igniting a similar spark in Jake. They could uplift each other in a cycle of creativity rather than one of self-doubt. Do you think I could really just start? That I wouldn't embarrass myself? He asked, fear still clouding his voice. Absolutely. We're allowed to be beginners, she said fiercely. An idea sparked in her mind. Why don't we create something together? I could help you with your music while you inspire my art. We could even mix our creations, contrasting colors and sounds. The beauty is in the process, not perfection. A collab? He queried, an unfamiliar glimmer of excitement edging into his voice. Yes, a collab, in the spirit of being imperfect. We can set the canvas for exploration, one filled with our messy, beautiful failures. Jake's brows furrowed slightly, but Sarah perceived the shift in his posture. It was as if the chains binding him were loosening, even slightly. I'd like that, he whispered. But it means being vulnerable, too. Like really putting myself out there, not just hiding behind a screen. Exactly, she encouraged. But think of it as an adventure rather than a challenge. We're discovering ourselves and each other along the way. As they exchanged tentative smiles, Sarah felt the weight of their previous burdens begin to shift. Yet, a creeping doubt loomed near. Could they truly sustain this momentum? Would their collaboration lay the groundwork for a more profound connection? Just as questions started to bubble back in her mind, Jake abruptly blurted out, "What happens when we fail at it?" "Let's worry about that when it comes, and if it comes," she replied, her voice steady. "Let's just take the first step together." Though she cloaked her own fears with encouragement, part of her still hesitated, wondering if she would be able to manage her own vulnerabilities alongside his awakening. Would they brave the uncertainties ahead, or would the fear of judgment bind them in place, stifling their growth? In that moment, they made a pact of sorts, but the larger, unanswerable truths still loomed heavy. As they began to forge a path together, the boundaries of self-doubt and insecurity awaited their next move, leaving Sarah questioning whether her own artistic ambitions could survive without overshadowing Jake's journey. That challenge pulsed in the air. The struggle of carving out individual identities amidst shared experiences still loomed ahead, both daunting and exhilarating. What awaited them in the upcoming days as they ventured into uncharted artistic territory? The sun blazed through the kitchen window, casting a warm glow on Sarah's workspace. As she cleared her table of old sketches, there was a tangible lightness in the room, It felt as though a new chapter had begun. Yet, beneath the surface of that clarity, uncertainty simmered. Sarah's heart raced at the thought of Jake's musical ideas merging with her art. Would their combined creativity blossom or crumble under pressure? Determined to push forward, she gathered her art supplies, each paint tube and brush an invitation to explore. She set aside her nagging doubts, focusing instead on the exhilarating prospect of collaboration. After all, creativity thrived on risk, and she was willing to face that risk head-on. But could she truly put her insecurities about her own artistic abilities aside to fully support Jake? In the days following their pact, they began to weave their visions together. Jake surprised her, taking the lead with enthusiasm, often retreating to his bedroom to compose, emerging only to share snippets of his music. Sarah, meanwhile, found solace in the vibrant strokes of her paintbrush. They created a rhythm of their own, exchanging ideas and energy like music notes composing a harmony. Yet, as their cosmic connection deepened, so did the shadow of comparison. While Jake thrived in his creative space, crafting melodic layers that resonated within Sarah, her own struggle with self-judgment began to rear its head. Was her art truly capturing the essence of their collaboration? Each time she painted a piece, doubt crept in. Was it enough? Was it worthy? One evening, Sarah sat in front of a blank canvas, staring at the chaos of colors opposing her expectations of beauty. Frustration bubbled within. What if she couldn't rise to be the artistic counterpart Jake deserved? She hesitated, brush in hand. An inner voice whispered, "Just finish it. Make it good enough." The pressure mounted like a suffocating fog, nearly halting her progress. "Hey, Mom, can I show you something?" Jake called from his room, his excitement palpable even from a distance. His voice jolted her from her reverie, momentarily pushing the insecurities aside. She dragged her feet toward him, a faint smile breaking through her worry. Jake's face lit up when he saw her, eagerly handing her his latest piece. A short track he had composed, blending melody with unscripted vocals. It was raw, a little shaky, but undeniably authentic. I tried to follow our theme, expressing vulnerability. "What do you think?" he asked, a tremor of anxiety underlying his seemingly casual demeanor. With her heart swelling with pride, Sarah nodded earnestly. "It's beautiful. I can feel your emotions. This is the kind of openness we talked about." Her words ignited a spark within him, and she instantly felt the connection between them tightening. Yet as she returned to her own workspace, Jake's authenticity only intensified her internal barrage. She could feel her own creations lagging behind his. How could she encourage him when she couldn't combat her own fears? The next morning, she forced herself to sit down with her canvas once more. Her thoughts dripped like vivid paint, spilling into wild strokes and chaotic shapes. What if she allowed herself to be seen in all its messy imperfection? What would it mean to embrace vulnerability fully? Letting go of comparison, she dropped her inhibitions like a heavy cloak. As she began painting, the brush flew with a renewed vigor, each bold stroke a rebellion against her self-doubt. For the first time in a long while, she surrendered to the process instead of forcing perfection. She could feel the fear lifting, slowly replaced by a sense of liberation that accompanied each layer of paint. In that moment, driving through her doubts paved the way for a vital revelation. It was not about the outcome, but the journey, the artistic exploration they were embarking on together. However, even as clarity washed over her, the urgent question loomed. Could Jake continue to face his fears alongside her? Or would they reach a pivotal point that shook their newfound connection? As they met after several days of unspoken tension, anticipation filled the air. Both stood on the precipice of something significant, a confrontation between their evolving identities. Would they emerge from the collision enhanced and united, or would the weight of expectations spark feelings of inadequacy in one or both of them? Only now, as they prepared to unveil their creations to one another, did they confront the real test of their journey together. As Sarah faced Jake, the air around them felt electric, charged with unexpressed sentiments. It wasn't just about their artwork anymore. It was about the raw vulnerability that came with sharing their truths. Sarah's heart thudded aggressively as she prepared to show him what she had created, a swirling canvas that felt like both liberation and confrontation. "Okay, let's do this," she breathed out, casting a fleeting glance at the doorway behind her, wanting to retreat into the safety of her solitude. But she squashed that impulse, reminding herself of the strides she had made in confronting her doubts. Jake stepped forward, eyes bright but tinged with apprehension. "Are you ready?" The question hung in the air, laden with significance. This was not merely about art. This was the moment they both had been building toward, the unveiling of their creative spirits. "Ready," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt inside. She thrust the canvas forward, her heart racing. Jake gasped, studying her work with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. The chaotic yet vibrant colors spiraled into a seemingly senseless tempest of emotions, a canvas that reflected both her struggles and her triumphs. "Wow, this is incredible," he exclaimed, genuine wonder streaking across his features. "It's chaotic, but it captures the essence perfectly." His praise stirred a cocktail of joy and disbelief within her. Had she really transcended her fears enough to create something that resonated? Sarah's face lit up with a smile, even as tightly intertwined threads of insecurity and pride pulled at her chest. Thank you," she managed, though uncertainty echoed in her tone. Jake looked closer, tilting his head. "You experimented a lot with your colors, huh? It's like you merged the chaos we spoke about with introspection." "Yeah," she nodded slowly, realizing he was right. "I just let go of trying to be perfect. Instead, I embraced every mistake and uncertainty." There was a moment of silence, both understanding the implications of that admission. It was more than just art. It was alignment with their own truths. "Speaking of letting go," Jake said cautiously, "I want to share something too. I feel okay about it now." He hesitated, his features tightening as if he were wrestling with an unseen foe. "I've been scared to show this side of my music. What if it's not good enough?" Sarah's heart sank for a moment. She recognized the voice of self-doubt all too well. "What if it is? What if it's everything you've wanted to express?" she encouraged, fighting to keep her voice steady. With a deep breath, he pulled out his phone and pressed play. As the music filled the room, the melody floated between them, capturing the essence of vulnerability, fear, and hope. Each note resonated as if giving life to silent anxieties they both felt. As the song played on, something shifted within Sarah. Listening to Jake's composition, she recognized that he was traversing the same landscape of insecurity she had just crossed. She felt illuminated, realizing both of them were on parallel quests, fighting against their fears in their own unique ways. But the music ended all too soon. Jake's eyes, however, sparkled with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. "What did you think?" "It was beautiful. Raw and honest. It matches perfectly with the theme we wanted," she replied, knowing the weight of those words mattered. Yet another realization dawned on her. While each of them was exploring the depths of their talents, they still faced the formidable challenge of crossing that threshold into an uncharted collaboration. "What if this journey leads us to something more?" she mused. The question lingered in the air, heavy with possibilities. Would they uncover a new depth to their artistic endeavors, or drown in the insecurities that plagued them both? As uncertainty loomed over them like a storm cloud, it quickly became apparent that their inner battles weren't just personal, but shared. The exploration had just begun, and the test of true partnership awaited. With newfound determination, Sarah pondered what revealing their experiences could yield, not just for their art, but for their relationship. The time had come to confront her question. Could shedding their insecurities pave the way for an exhilaration neither had expected? The pivotal moment edged closer. Would they be brave enough to explore that path together, or would fear dictate their course? The silence that enveloped the room after the music faded felt pregnant with anticipation. A moment suspended in time. Sarah's heart raced as she gazed at Jake, his expression oscillating between hope and doubt. This was the precipice of new beginnings, yet an unsettling thought tightened her chest. Was she truly prepared for what lay ahead? "Maybe we should do something with this," Jake ventured, his voice breaking the tension. "If we can blend our art and music, we could create something powerful." For a fleeting second, a rush of excitement coursed through Sarah. The idea of collaboration thrilled her, yet the lingering shadow of trepidation caused her resolve to waver. What if their insecurities spiraled back into the chaos they had just begun to embrace? "What do you mean by that?" she asked, her curiosity piqued but cautious. "I don't know. A performance, perhaps, an exhibition. It could showcase our journey and what we've overcome," he suggested, his confidence growing as he spoke. Her mind raced with the implications. Performing meant stepping out of the protective bubble she had so scrupulously constructed around herself. Could she really expose her vulnerabilities again, this time merged with someone else's? "But what if we fail? What if it's not received well?" Jake's gaze sharpened. "What if it is? Our struggles resonate through our art. Maybe it wouldn't be perfect, but it would be real. It's worth the risk, isn't it?" His words hung in the air, challenging her to confront her fears. Every instinct urged her to retreat into self-doubt. Yet another voice whispered of the potential growth this could bring. She could feel the weight of her hesitation pressing down like a physical force. "Okay," Sarah said, the word escaping her lips before she could second-guess herself. "Let's do it, but we have to promise we'll be honest with each other throughout the process. No holding back." A smile of relief and determination spread across Jake's face. "Absolutely. We'll dive deep and support one another." With that commitment solidified, Sarah felt a strange alchemy mixing within her. Fear and exhilaration entwined into a new resolve. The journey was just beginning, yet she understood that the path ahead would be anything but smooth. There would be artistic challenges and possibly rough patches in their partnership. In the days that followed, they began meeting more frequently, poring over sketches, exchanging musical ideas, and drilling into the core of their emotional experiences. Sarah felt herself unraveling in ways she had never anticipated, each session a venture into uncharted territory. Moments arose when self-doubt threatened to creep back in, yet Jake's encouragement and their mutual vulnerability carved new roots through her psyche. Realization welled up within Sarah as she navigated this collaboration. Expressing their pain and joy didn't compromise their individual identities. It fortified them. Each discussion held the power to dissect layers of fear she hadn't dared to confront before. Through artistic exploration, they unearthed new pieces of themselves, surprising facets that waited in shadowy corners of their minds. But one evening, as they stood side by side sketching out their ideas, Sarah caught herself staring at Jake. She brushed aside the fluttering feelings of infatuation that arose. A new concern took shape. Was this mixing of professional and personal connection risky? Would their budding partnership become entangled in deeper emotions, complicating everything they built creatively? She quickly looked away, reeling from the thought, yet unable to shake the notion that something intricate was threading between them, something that could easily slip into a maze of confusion. As days rolled into weeks, the weight of her growing feelings hung there like an unresolved chord in Jake's music, a lingering dissonance that demanded resolution. The tension was palpable, yet unpredictable. With the date for their first performance drawing nearer, Sarah found herself striking a delicate balance between excitement and dread. Would revealing their combined talents before an audience embolden them further, or unearth hidden insecurities that could shatter the connection they were forging? In the final days before the unveiling, as she spoke with Jake about their evolving work, a thought struck her like a lightning bolt. What if digging into their connection revealed hidden truths, not just about their art, but about themselves? As they continued to rehearse, one crucial moment approached. A decision awaited them, one that could change the trajectory of their collaboration forever. Would they embrace the emotional depths they had unearthed, or shield their hearts behind the canvas and notes? Suddenly Sarah felt a rush of resolve. She had entered this journey wanting to confront her doubts and fears. Little did she realize, they were merely the first step, and far greater revelations lay ahead. Tomorrow would bring more than just painting and music. Tomorrow would demand a conversation, a confrontation with the truth of what she felt for Jake. Would she have the courage to dive deeper into this new territory, or would she once again succumb to fear? The day dawned, heavy with possibility, Yet Sarah's stomach twisted in knots. The bustling world outside her window blurred into a haze of muted colors as anxiety settled in like an unwelcome guest. She had committed to diving deep, yet the tumult of emotions swirling within felt ready to overthrow any semblance of clarity. As she stood in front of her easel, surrounded by the residue of their work, a cacophony of hues reflecting their shared experiences, she wondered if the images captured not only their collaboration, but also the vibrations of something unspoken, lingering just beneath the surface. Was this endeavor to craft art merely a facade for the greater confrontation she was now dreading? Moments later, she arrived at Jake's studio, the doors ajar as if inviting her into the growing intimacy of their shared journey. The air hummed with anticipation. Behind each brushstroke and musical note was the weight of their unvoiced feelings. Taking a steadying breath, she stepped inside, heart pounding, and was greeted by Jake's genuine smile. "Ready?" he asked, a hint of apprehension hitching on his tongue. "Yes," she replied, though her voice cracked just slightly, betraying her inner turmoil. The morning felt electric, charged with everything they had created together and what lay before them. They settled into their routine, fiddling with sketches, tossing notes back and forth. Yet Sarah's mind was adrift. The conversation about their artwork felt critical, almost necessary, but she sensed the gravity of her unresolved feelings edging into their artistic territory, making it increasingly difficult to concentrate. "Let's try something," Jake suggested, strumming a chord on his guitar, a tender melody hanging in the air. "Let the music guide us. Paint how you feel in the moment." With an eager nod, she wiped her brush against the canvas, allowing the music to infiltrate her senses. It flowed through her limbs, igniting a primal instinct to create, yet she struggled to separate her emotions from the colors splattering across the canvas. A swirl of crimson, an outpour of blues, shadows giving rise to brilliant yellows as their tones collided and fused. As the music crescendoed, Sarah felt her pulse quicken, a visceral reaction to the notes coaxing from Jake's guitar. It was more than just their artwork. It was a plea for openness, a gentle nudge toward vulnerability that resonated within her. Yet she was at a crossroads, a choice between revealing her truth, with the potential for mutual understanding, or retreating back to her protective shell. "Sarah," Jake's voice broke through her reverie, interrupting the rush of colors. "What are you feeling?" The earnestness in his eyes drew her back to reality, making it impossible to deflect. This wasn't just about art anymore. This was the moment to confront the intricate knot tying their emotions, both personal and artistic. "I feel overwhelmed," Sarah admitted, fumbling for words. "These colors, this music, it's beautiful, but it's also terrifying. I feel so exposed, so vulnerable." Jake nodded, his brow furrowing thoughtfully. "That's what makes it real, right? Using that vulnerability is powerful, isn't it?" "Yes," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "But what if it complicates everything? Our work, our connection, whatever this is between us." The silence between them thickened, charged with unspoken words. She could see the tension easel-sharp in Jake's posture, yet there was an invitation etched in his gaze. "What if the complexity is part of the journey?" he asked softly. "What if embracing this leads to something greater, both in our art and in our personal growth?" She hesitated, uncertainty gnawing at her resolve, but with every brushstroke she felt the chains of her fear begin to crack. Perhaps confronting their intertwined realities was not a risk to be avoided, but an opportunity for transformation, personally and artistically. With a newfound courage, Sarah met Jake's eyes, a determination igniting within her. "You're right. It's time to face this, instead of hiding behind our art. We need to explore what this connection truly means." As their discussions shifted toward vulnerability, she began to feel the undercurrent of palpable energy between them, that tension simmering just beneath the surface, ready to burst forth and redefine everything they had built together. It was as if they were stepping into a new realm, one defined not only by color and sound, but by the promise of deeper exploration. But just as the edge of clarity began to solidify, the moment hung suspended, a hesitation looming like a shadow. casting doubt upon her resolve. One thing was certain. As they prepared for their performance, they were also preparing to confront what lay before them, the forefront of their emotions, poised to either elevate or shatter the foundation of their connection. Sarah took a deep breath. Would she truly embrace the full spectrum of her feelings for Jake? Or would she shy away as the moment demanded clarity? The stakes had never felt higher. The moment of truth was upon her, and as the music faded into the backdrop of their colorful canvas, Sarah braced herself for a leap into the unknown. Would she find the courage to embrace both her art and her heart? The air in Jake's studio was thick with anticipation and creativity. Sarah stood poised to confront not just the canvas before her but also the tumult of feelings simmering within. In that moment, the gravity of vulnerability weighed heavy, each brush feeling like a question hanging in the air, begging for clarity. She could feel Jake's gaze, an anchoring force, yet also a mirror reflecting her innermost fears. Would she really be brave enough to peel back the layers of her heart? The past week had been a whirlwind of colors and melodies, yet the less tangible aspects of their collaboration, the emotional and the personal, had remained in the shadows. With a deep breath, she dipped her brush into a vivid orange, channeling the warmth she felt towards Jake, mixed with the fear that threatened to engulf her. The brush grazed the canvas with urgency. Stroke by stroke, she painted, using bold colors to express what felt like an invisible tension building inside her. Sarah. He broke the silence, his voice steady yet soft. You're creating something beautiful. His words hung in the air, stirring something in her chest. It was more than just the appreciation for her artistry. It felt as if they were dissecting the layers of their unspoken connection. I'm trying to articulate everything I haven't said, she admitted, forcing her gaze to remain steady on him. All the things I'm afraid could change everything. Jake stepped closer, the warmth of his presence palpable. Then let's unearth those fears together. If it complicates every aspect, perhaps it's meant to, don't you think? Explore those uncertainties. We owe it to ourselves, and to our art. His eyes held a challenge, inviting her down the uncharted paths of honesty. A part of her wanted to recoil to protect herself from the risks of entanglement. But another part, the bold, breathing artist, yearned to explore the very depths that Jake was encouraging her to tap into. She needed to understand if this chemistry could be something more than a fleeting spark. Okay, she whispered, her heart racing. I'll show you what I've been keeping inside. As she moved to the canvas, she shifted her focus. She began painting memories mixed with desires, lost moments entangled with the hope for their connection. Each stroke released a fragment of her uncertainty, a burst of clarity amidst the chaos. The once blank canvas rapidly transformed, revealing an abstract representation of tumult, longing, and the bittersweet anticipation of vulnerability. As she painted, emotions surged through her, and she began to speak aloud. Do you ever feel conflict between what's in your heart and what makes sense on paper? Jake nodded, his gaze focused intently on her. Absolutely, but perhaps our hearts know things before our minds can comprehend. Isn't that where the best art comes from? Maybe, she said, flicking her gaze back to the canvas. But taking that leap feels monumental. I don't know if I can risk what I feel, what we feel, by articulating it. A silence lingered, thick with possibility. Sarah caught herself holding her breath, teetering on the edge of something profound, unsure whether to leap or hold back. Jake stepped forward, closing the distance. What if the risk leads to liberation? What if confronting this, together, opens doors we've only imagined? In the depths of his gaze, she sensed a mutual understanding, fear laced with potential. A revelation dawned upon her. Embracing uncertainty not only required courage, but also a refreshing authenticity. She thought about their late-night conversations, how their laughter folded into harmonic riffs, and how they shaped the contours of their art through shared moments of vulnerability. Suddenly she realized that their connection transcended mere collaboration. It was a tender partnership, fusing their artistic expressions into a language of understanding. As the music resumed softly in the background, integrating with her brush strokes, Sarah felt an internal shift. Maybe she could embrace this chaos after all. Perhaps by stepping boldly into this tumultuous arena of emotions, she could paint a narrative far more profound than either of them had previously imagined. Yet, within that newfound resolve, uncertainty gripped her once more. What awaited them if they drew back the curtain on their feelings? Would their art be enhanced, or would it unravel everything they had built? Her hands stilled against the canvas as an unsettling but compelling thought swept through her. The potential for brilliant creation or heartbreak danced dangerously close. Would she gather the resolve to push forward, or would she retreat back into the familiar safety of artistry without emotional entanglement? As she met Jake's eyes again, a silent challenge was set between them. She could feel every muscle in her being tensed with the weight of decision looming on the horizon. The moment hung, stretched taut with unanswered questions and the promise of revelations. The time had come to transform their artistic collaboration into an exploration of the heart. Would Sarah seize the opportunity, or would she let fear quell her burgeoning courage? In the days following their emotional revelations, Sarah and Jake found themselves immersed not only in a creative whirlwind, but also in an exhilarating journey of self-discovery. The walls of their respective fears began to crumble under the weight of shared vulnerability, and each brushstroke and musical note echoed with renewed clarity and purpose. Finally, the day of their performance arrived, an intertwining of their art that held the promise of growth and discovery. At the local gallery, under the soft glow of lights reflecting off the pristine walls, the atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. Friends, neighbors, and families gathered, aware they were about to witness something unprecedented, an unveiling of not just art, but the very essence of Sarah and Jake's relationship. As Sarah prepared behind the canvas, the initial nerves fluttered in her stomach, occupying the space where doubt had once taken a firm hold. Yet, with every passing moment, a profound sense of confidence began to replace her apprehensions. This performance was no longer merely about showcasing talent or the risk of failure. It was about embodying truths they had both fought so bravely to express. Taking a deep breath, she caught Jake's eye from across the room. The warmth there radiated assurance, a reminder that they were in this together. It took time to arrive at this pivotal point, or perhaps a lifetime, but here they stood, two artists balanced between vulnerability and transformation, poised to redefine not only their art, but also their ultimate aspirations. "Ready?" he mouthed, the corners of his lips lifting in a smile that ignited her spirit. "Ready," she replied, her voice steadier than she had ever expected. As they took the stage, the audience fell into a hush, anticipation hanging thick in the air. With Jake strumming the first notes on his guitar, Sarah felt a surge of energy course through her as she stepped up to her canvas. She began to paint, letting the vibrant strokes emerge in sync with the rhythm of Jake's melody. Each brush dipped into paint became an exploration, each stroke a declaration, a means of sharing their collective journeys through creativity and emotion. The song layered Jake's heartfelt lyrics over the sound of the guitar, and as he sang about hope, fear, and connection, Sarah painted with fervor about loss, rediscovery, and courage. The audience watched spellbound as they merged their passions, the music complementing the art with perfect harmony. Slowly but surely, her confidence unfurled against the tension of the moment. This was it. This was the bridge from obscurity to realization, the kind that recast previous fears as stepping stones toward freedom. They were not just presenting a performance. They were sharing a profound narrative. Two souls intertwined in their artistic pursuits, battling their fears while embracing the beauty of uncertainty. Amid the rendition, she glanced at Jake, his expression hanging between hope and insistence. It struck her then. This wasn't merely a performance. It was a conversation, an invitation to explore their hearts without reservation. As the final note lingered and the last brushstroke graced the canvas, the gallery erupted in applause. A cascade of cheers filled the air, but what resonated deeper within Sarah was the echo of a moment much more significant, the affirmation of her growth, the acknowledgement of her journey. With every clap and cheer that enveloped them, Sarah felt a weight lift, a weight that had carried the doubts and fears of a lifetime. Before her stood not just a finished piece of art, but a testament to transformation, a solid representation of how far she had come and the paths yet to explore. Stepping back from the canvas, their gazes locked, Jake beamed with pride. They shared a moment of understanding that transcended words. Together, they had created something meaningful, not just for themselves, but for everyone who had witnessed it. The display of their artistry had shifted from private struggles to public triumphs. "Sarah, that was incredible," Jake whispered, a mixture of exhilaration and disbelief lacing his voice. "Thank you for believing in me," she replied, her heart swelling with gratitude. "In us." With their journey laid bare, a new chapter unfolded, brimming with potential. Together they had conquered their fears, accomplished a shared vision, and strengthened their bond in ways that would guide them toward future creative endeavors. As the crowd began to disperse, Sarah's thoughts turned to Jake. In confronting her fears, she had embraced her artistry, reshaped her aspirations, and emerged with renewed clarity. She stood at a pivotal moment, not just as an artist, but as a mother, a partner, and most importantly, as someone who had discovered the power of authenticity. Proud of their achievement, Sarah smiled. Now their path forward shimmered with possibility, a voyage fueled by exploration and discovery, threaded together not only through art, but through the courage of two individuals willing to embrace their truth. This was the culmination of her journey, a heartfelt resolution transforming fear into freedom and showcasing not just the triumph of a performance, but the realization of her potential as an artist and a mother. If you've resonated with Sarah's journey of transforming vulnerability into strength, now is the moment to act. You need to subscribe immediately to this channel to ensure you catch all our upcoming emotional stories that inspire growth and resilience. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Every click helps us share these powerful narratives with more people who need to hear them. Comment your thoughts and theories about Sarah and Jake's journey below. Your engagement means the world to us. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who could benefit from a story of personal overcoming. Let's lift each other up together.